Hello, it's Erica here from Me To You Paper Crafts. I have a new fun fold for you this week. This is called a swing fold card, and I've seen this made a couple of times on YouTube, and the lady that I actually took the design from her name is Jan B, and she is from Britain. And the reason I liked her card was because she actually gave you the measurements and the technique for cutting out the designer series paper to layer on top. So the colors in this card are actually from our new 2020 to 2021 in color collection. So this is Cinnamon Cider, and then this is called Bumblebee. And it has, of course, a lot of products that coordinate with it. It's got the cardstock. It has the designer series paper. It's a 6x6 pack. It has, of course, the stamp pads or the ink pads, and it also has some small embellishments, and it has ribbon. So lots of things that you can put together to make some really lovely cards, and the colors actually do go quite well together. So this one I'm quite happy with, and so we're going to make the next one. I want to make another masculine card, and I want to make it out of the Just Jade color, and again I'm going to use the Bumblebee on here. So on my blog post I will have all of the cutting and scoring measurements for you, and then you can watch the video to put it together. Now I do advise for this particular card to maybe watch the video through before you actually start putting it together, because there's some little tips and tricks along the way that you might want to pay attention to. And we do have some precise cutting using our trimmer for this. Okay, so the stamp set, I'm using 2 stamp sets because I want a happy birthday. So I'm using this Tasteful Touches. There are some lovely greetings in here. We're actually using this You Are So Special, and then I'm going to do a happy birthday, which I'm taking from the Peaceful Moments stamp set. And this Tasteful Touches stamp set comes with these fantastic labels. I love any, not labels, sorry, yeah, well, they're labels, but they're dies to cut labels is what I was meaning to say. And so there's some really interesting inside-outside stitching, as well as some lines that you can cut or emboss into your cardstock. So really an interesting die set to use to embellish your greetings. And we're going to use those today. So let me put this stuff aside. Now I've already got my stamps mounted. So what we will start with is oh, I'm just realizing I haven't even cut my Whisper White yet. Or did I? Let me just poke underneath. No, I haven't cut the Whisper White pieces. So I'll have to go and do that. So I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back with our 2 Whisper White pieces here. Alright, so I'm going to set these aside for now, and we're going to make the card base to start with. So I'll set aside the DSP, and we'll take out this basic piece here, and we will do our cutting. Now, one thing I want to show you what I've done on my cutter is that I find it very difficult to see. We need to really rely on this ruler along the side of this arm. And I find it very, very difficult to see the markings on here because it's clear. So I took just some sticky notes, the long sticky notes, and I actually just stuck them onto here so that now I can see my ruler. I didn't do the whole thing. I mostly did it just for this project, but it might be a good idea maybe to take some copy paper and do the whole sheet here. Maybe a 1/4 inch is all you need, and then attach that with maybe some little glue dots or something. But it's much easier to see where you're going because we have to do some very precise cutting. The other thing I did is, I don't know if you can see this, but on the sides of these, both the cutting blade and the scoring blade, there is instead of having a little pokey thing sticking out like they did on the old trimmer, they've just put in some lines in here, and I had a silver pen and I just tried to mark it so I could see it a lot better, because you have to do some pretty precise cutting with, you know, quite a few projects, so I'm just trying to make it a lot easier. Okay, now I will be referring to my notes here because I don't have this all to memory and I want to make sure I don't make a mistake. So we're going to first do some cutting. So we basically need to cut out, see, it's a solid piece of cardstock, and we need to cut out these two windows here. And they don't go all the way through, okay? That's why we're doing some precise cutting here. So you've got a longer side to the cardstock, and we're going to do the long side first. So I'm going to be lining this up, and I'm going to use the right side of my scoreboard here. So this goes to pretty well 1.5 inches. So I'm going to line the long side up at 1.25 inches right here. I'm going to line that up there, okay? And then you want to make sure you don't move it. I mean, you could take, I use these little post-it notes. You could put a little post-it note up here and here just to make sure it doesn't move on you. And I don't want to get my head in the camera, so I might actually turn this sideways so I can see where I'm cutting up here. So what I want to do is I'm going to cut from 1.25 to 4.5. So from 1.25 to about 4.5, okay? So make sure your scoring blade is out of the way. And I'm going to pull this one out of the way until I can see what I'm doing. And you want to hold, so I'm going to turn it sideways. I think this is much easier for me. And so you want to hold the arm up and then position your cutting blade to 1.25 inches. So I can see that very clearly now because I've got this post-it note in here. So 1.25. Now you'll also notice that this arm moves up and down, so I'm going to try and make sure I always push it up towards the top of the trimmer to start with, okay? So I've got this this cutting blade at 1.25 inches, and then I am going to slide it down to 4.5. So here's 4.5. Okay, so slide it down to 4.5. There we go, perfect. Now you're going to repeat the exact same thing. I'm just going to flip my cardstock 180 degrees like this. So see, this is what you end up with. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to line this up again at 1.25. Make sure it's flush up against the top of the scoreboard. And I'm going to use my post-it notes again just to hold my paper in place, because I'm going to turn it around sideways, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. Now my blade is already at 4.5, so why move it? So I'm going to just go from 4.5 now up to 1.25. Okay, so I'm going to slide it up now. Here's my 1.25 inch mark, and slide that right up to 1.25. Okay. So now we have to do the short side. Now we're not cutting all the way through, we're only cutting little bits in here because we're leaving this spine in the middle. You see this spine here? We're not cutting through that. Okay, so again, now you're going to line the short side up again to 1.25. So let's come over to 1.25 again. I'll do the exact same thing. I'll use my little post-it flags to hold my paper down. Put this extra one here. Okay, and I'm going to turn this sideways so I can see what I'm doing. All right, so now what we're doing is we're going to cut from this already cut line here towards the middle of the card. So we're going to line up again at 1.25, and we're now going to cut from 1.25, which is where this cut line is. So at 1.25, and we're going to cut down to 2 3/4. So here is my 2 3/4. So it's a very short cut, 2 3/4. Okay, now you lift the arm up and you're going to reposition your blade at 4 inches. So I'm going to come down to 4 inches here, and then I'm going to cut down to 5.5, which is where this cut is. So 5.5. There we go. Okay. So now I'm going to turn it around and do the other side. Same thing. Okay, I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to line it up again at 1 1/4. I have to turn this so I can see it. So here's my 1 and there's my 1/4. And then I'll stick these. I think these flags help. They give me kind of the confidence that my paper is in the right spot. Okay, so now my blade is already down here at 5.5, and so I'm going to go up to 4 inches now. I hope this doesn't confuse you, but once your blade is in place, I mean, it makes no sense to me to move it. So I'm going to go up to 4 inches now. There's my 4 inches. Okay, now I have to lift up my arm and move the blade. I'm going to go back to my 1 1/4 inches up here at the top. 1 1/4 inches, and I'm going down to 2 3/4. So 2, here's my 3/4 right here. 2 3/4. Okay? All right. So hope those instructions were nice and clear for you. You might want to try this out on a scrap piece of cardstock that you have. So this is what you end up with, okay? And my cutting was, I'm very proud of myself, was quite precise because I got all 4 corners. Sometimes if you don't cut quite perfectly, then you have to just use your paper snips and cut out the corners. They might not have cut right through, but luckily, because this is my 3rd or 4th card that I've done, I think I'm getting the hang of it. And I do highly advise that you put some strips of paper in here so you can see the ruler. Okay, now the next thing we need to do is, this is actually folded in what we call a Z fold. So we want to create some score marks in here. So again, you line this up at, let me just look at my notes, I think it's at 1 1/4. Scoring. Okay, we're going back to the long side again, and this time we're going to line this up over here on the left side at 2 3/4. Move these out of the way. So I'm going to 2, let's see, 2 3/4 is right here. Oh, and we're actually scoring this side here. So 2 3/4. Like that. Oh, you can't see that in the camera. Good job, I checked. Okay, 2 3/4 on this side. You're lining it up on this side for scoring. So 2 3/4. Make sure you get rid of that cutting blade. And rather than use my score blade, I'm just going to use my bone folder for this. And so once it's at 2 3/4, then you can just, you're just scoring where that cut line is. So just come down where the cut line is. Okay, and give it a score. I don't think on this trimmer this works. I think Jen was using an older trimmer. No, that's not working, and it's not even lined up properly. So I'm going to do it the way I did it before. I didn't bother scoring it. See, because that's not even in the right place. I don't know why. So I think she was using the older trimmer too. So let's do it the way I did my prototype. Now you want to make sure you don't rip your cardstock, but what I'm basically doing is I am going to fold it where that cut line is. Just put your finger in there right where that cut line is on both sides to start, okay, like that. Then what I want to do is I'm going to fold this over, try and do both at the same time if you can, and make sure that you line up the edges here. Then I'm just going to use my bone folder and do a press. So I'm going to come over this side and do this one now. Oh, now something's gone terribly wrong. I don't think that I've cut this right. How the hell did that happen? Look, it's all crooked. This, no wonder that score line didn't work out. This had to be cut down a little bit lower. I don't know what I did there. So I could fix it just by snipping it. So see, that's where I've made a mistake. I didn't cut far enough down. Now what's this side like? These two are even over here, but this one I made a little boo-boo. Okay, so I must not have followed my instructions very well. I told you correctly, I know that, but I didn't do it. Okay, so I think, and my DSP will cover up that extra score line there. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to actually, let's retry this. I apologize for this, you guys. So 2 3/4 lined up here. And I am going to use my scoring blade here. And I'm going to, yeah, let's use these flags again. And we want to score up to, this is at 4.5 here. Let's score up to 4.5. And then I want to score from 1 1/4 here to the top. Oh, look at that. See, it worked perfectly. Look at that. That worked perfectly. Okay, let's rotate this and do it the other way now. So again, I'm lining this up at 2 3/4. Yeah, that's what we want. 2 3/4. And let's score again. So I'm scoring, let's get rid of this cut blade. I'm scoring from 1 1/4 here to the top. So 1 1/4 to the top. And then I'm going from 4.5 here to the bottom. Okay, I fixed it. Geez, that's absolutely perfect. Okay, all the cutting instructions, you know, where you cut from and to will be in the directions. So hopefully I won't make that mistake again. Okay, so now I want to fold, but you still want to line up your edges here to make sure. Yes, look at that. That's perfect. So I made one little mistake there. Luckily, it was fixable. Now this one, we went forward. This one, we want to go back. Okay. There we go. Okay, and that little extra crease that I have in here from my boo-boo, I can cover that with the DSP. Okay. All right, now that's the main card done. Now we've got these two panels here, which are for the sides, and so naturally we have to cut out a piece on the left and the right. Okay. So let me pull back my scoreboard. This is a little bit easier to do than the whole card. We're going to do one at a time. So to cut the DSP, we're going to start with the long piece first, the long side. Can you see that? And now I'm going to line this up on the right side. Instead of at 1 1/4, I'm lining it up at 1 1/8. Okay, so make sure you get your measurements done correctly. So 1 1/8. And I'm basically just cutting down from the top. So get rid of my score blade. I'm going from the top down to 1 1/2. So again, I'm going to turn it sideways just so I can see. So I'm cutting from the top to 1 1/2 right to here. Okay, like so. Sorry, I'm reading my instructions here. So line up right side to 1 1/8, cut down to 1 1/2, move to the right and line up at 1 1/8. I think I forgot to say to rotate it. So we need to, yeah, flip it over and do the same thing. So line it up at 1 1/8 again. Okay. And then I'm going to cut down from the top to 1 1/2. Okay. So now I've got these two pieces like that. Now I need to get rid of this. So with these cuts on the left hand side over here, you're going to line the right up again to 1 1/8, like so, and put in your little post-it notes. And now you are going to line this up, and you're basically cutting these between these two lines here. Okay, so this is lined up at 1 1/8. So at 1 1/8, let me just reread my notes here. With cuts on the left and line up right to 1 1/8, cut down from 1 1/8 to 4 1/2. Okay, so 1 1/8 to 4 1/2. Okay, perfect. Yes, I think that cut that out pretty good. Okay, perfect. Now we're going to do the exact same thing on this piece. Okay, so we're going to line this up at 1 1/8. And we're cutting from the top down to 1 1/2. So here's my 1 1/2, and cut down to 1 1/2. Okay, then we're going to just flip it over, line it up again at 1 1/8. Now this will be easier for you because you won't have to flip your board around because you can just stick your head right over it, so you'll see what you're doing, but I don't want to get my head in the way. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm going from the top to 1 1/2. 1 1/2. Okay. And then I'm just going to cut this piece out. So I've got the flaps over here, and I'm lining this up again at 1 1/8. Like that. So I'm cutting down from 1 1/8 again, 1 1/8, down to 4 1/2. Here's my 4 1/2. Okay. So that is done. So I don't think we need this anymore. So here are 2 pieces. And let's bring back the card base. Now I wanted to use Tombow on here because you have an opportunity to slide it around on here. So there should be a tiny bit of a border on here. So I like to look at it first to see how it's lining up. Now this green, the DSP and the cardstock match really well, so it's kind of hard to see, but we're just going to go with it. So where's my Tombow now? And I just put it around, just a very thin line. To start with. So I'm going to try and line up my outside. It's very, very, very narrow edge here. There we go. And let's do this side now. So I hope you'll give this card a try, because you may not enjoy the first one you make, the process. Even with Jan B's excellent instructions, I made a few glitches. I even made a few glitches on this, my 3rd or 4th card, as you saw, but I think it's worth doing. I love the end result. And we all enjoy a good challenge, do we not? Okay, look at that. See? Flip or swing. Keep calling it a flip fold, but that's another fold. This is a swing card. All right, so we are now ready to decorate our centerpieces. So I have my yellows again. Look how nice that bumblebee looks on that Just Jade. And so for the front of my card, I'm going to do the same as I did on that first one. Oh, I forgot. We've got these little pieces here too. This is for the spine bit here. Yeah, maybe we should do that first. You could leave it blank if you wanted to. These are 1 1/8 by 1 1/8. And they should fit in nicely. Make sure you've got your paper oriented the right way as well, if your paper has a direction. And then let's do this little piece. Oops. We're going to do this one. Okay. Back to the centerpieces. So on this one, I really like this little bit of a background smudge. I don't know what you'd call it. It's got some texture to it, this piece here. And then I'm using this fabulous feather. Now, there's no die for the feather, so I did hand cut that out. All right, so I want to say on here first, I'm going to use the yellow again. No, yes, I'm going to do the yellow again. and I am going to use this stamp, and I'm going to get a scrap piece of paper because I want to stamp off the ink so it's not so bright. And I'm just going to put a little bit in this corner here, and I'll put a little bit in the top here, like that. Okay, now I want to use that die. We're going to use this die here and cut. I really like, now I could have done cardstock, but I really liked it on the DSP, and I'm going to change this up a bit. This is going to go on the yellow, but I think I'm going to do this on the green. Sorry, I need to pull out some more of the green here. So I'm going to go and cut this piece out, and I'll be right back. All right, I have this piece done, and now the feather, I gotta decide on the color for the feather. Maybe I'll do that in the yellow. So let me pull out some scrap Whisper White here. And I want to stamp the feather in the yellow again. Oh, I like it in the, I keep calling it yellow. It's not yellow, it's Bumblebee. Bumblebee. And on the same cardstock, we're going to be cutting out this other die. I'm using this die here. And I'm going to do my greeting, "You are so special," in Memento Black. I like to position my dies just so I have an idea of where to stamp my greeting. Okay, so I'm going to go and die cut this out, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I've got my greeting stamped, and I'm going to just glue this on here. I'm just going to use Tombow. And we'll glue this onto this, I call them labels. Greeting frames could be another piece of terminology. Whoa, careful, don't make that crooked. Okay, and then I cut this off camera, my feather off camera. And I'm going to put this on dimensionals. So let's put the feather on dimensionals. Let's pull back this base. Now, before I start building up, I want to make sure I stick this down to this layer. So let's pull out my silicone sheet and my tape runner. And we will mount this like so, and then I'm going to glue this to this piece. like so. And then I am going to, before I put the feather on, I need to mount it onto this piece. So I think I'm going to use Tombow for this, just in case I have to slide it around a little bit. So lie it flat, and then try and get it centered. There we go. And now I can take off the backing on my dimensionals and stick this here like that. There we go. Why is this not working all of a sudden? This goes back, this goes forward. Oh, this is why. There we go. Just got, I think it got hung up on the, there we go. Just got hung up on the DSP, I think. Okay, so now we just have to put something on the back. Same thing, we'll just decide what we want to decorate the back with. So I think I wanted to do a happy birthday on here. And so I have this here, but again I'm going to, what did I do on this one? I think I did some more of that. Yeah, I did a little bit of that on there. So let's pull this back in with the yellow. And again, I will stamp off the ink. I don't want to do it on my silicone mat because I don't want to get ink on there. Because then when I go to glue something, I'll get ink all over it. So we'll do that there. Stamp off again. And do that like that. And then we're going to do happy birthday. So this "You Are Special" greeting works for both birthdays and thank yous, I think. And I've got a glue dot on the side of my ink pad. Now we have to leave some room for you to write a greeting on there, so I'll just put the happy birthday up here, like so. Okay, so now we want to glue this to our layer. There we go. Let's close my ink pad. And then we're going to glue this onto the card. So just get this centered again. There we go. So there's your swing fold card. I hope that wasn't too painful for you. Like I said, give it a go and just watch your cutting. Take your time and it should work out. I'm quite pleased with the way that worked out. Other than my little glitch at the very beginning, I think that turned out quite nicely. So I hope you enjoy that card, and I will see you next time. Again, if you'd like to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and if you click the bell, of course you'll be reminded that I have posted a new video. And the blog URL will be in the description below. And I have a new host code for July. So if you are a Canadian shopper, you are more than welcome to shop with me. And if you use the host code, I appreciate that, because then I buy little extra gifts for giveaways. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.